Hey guys, what's up? And in the last video we talked about Jonah, the story of Jonah. In this video we're going to be talking about wisdom literature. There are three books or categories of wisdom literature: the book of Psalms, Proverbs, and the book of Job. These books teach wisdom as said in the name. The common traits of wisdom literature are how to live a moral and conduct life, wise insights, and helpful hints on things like God, nature, and the practicals of life. Many of the books are based on experience, and they confront the difficulties of life, the problem of good versus evil, and the question of life versus death. We can gain wisdom by studying books of wise sayings, associating with wise people, and through experiences. The beginning of wisdom is the fear of God, not meaning actual fear but respect, awe, and realizing how we have to submit to God's authority over us and not fight against it. Most of the wisdom literature books were written in two separate periods. One of them was the time of Solomon, because he's said to be the wisest man of all time. Many of the books are attributed to him historically. They contain much of Jewish literature, stuff they may already know or stuff they may have learned from other cultures. The other period of writing was during the exile because the Jews needed to pass on and retain the information they knew. They were afraid they would lose the wisdom, so they wrote it down. The book of Psalms consists of 150 psalms, mostly written by David. They are the prayers of Jesus himself, and they recount the entire biblical story. The book is divided into 5 categories. The first category of psalms are the lament psalms. They talk about sadness and sorrow. These psalms can be performed by an individual or by a community in the way that they help you ask for God's help. The structure of these psalms is divided into 6 parts. First is invocation or calling for God. Second is description describing your distress. Third is asking for God's help. Fourth is the motive why God should help. Fifth is the promise to God, saying you'll be faithful to him if he helps you. And lastly is the act of faith and confidence, saying you are confident God will help you. The second type of psalm are the thanksgiving psalms, which praise God for what he has given. These can also be performed by an individual or a community. Hymns, which are songs, not psalms, are also in the book of Psalms. They are similar to the thanksgiving psalms because they both are about praise. The third are the royal psalms. They mention the kings and kingdoms of God. They also mention the Messiah. Fourth are the confidence psalms, which are about having faith and trust in God. And lastly, the sixth type of psalm, which are the wisdom psalms, which talk about human conduct and how the just man should act. The second part of wisdom literature is the book of Proverbs. The book of Proverbs contains collections of sayings and instructions. The primary purpose of the book is to teach wisdom, not only to the young and inexperienced, but also to the advanced. The last part of wisdom literature is the book of Job. Job is a blessed man. He is very wealthy. Throughout the story, he represents the chosen people who are struggling to get over the Old Testament theology, if you sin, you suffer. One day, God is chilling, and Satan goes up to him, and God asks him where he's been. The Satan says he was roaming and patrolling the earth, and then God asks Satan if he has seen Job, who is unlike any other, for he fears God and a kind of evil. The Satan says, duh, you gave him all this stuff and made him rich. The Satan says that if God were to lay a hand on Job's stuff, Job would curse God right to his face. The Lord tells the Satan that if Job owns is now in his hands, the Satan's hands, but that he must not lay a hand on him directly. So the Satan then went forth to begin the period of testing. One day a messenger came to Job and told him that the oxen and donkeys were taken away and raided by the Sabeans, and they killed the servants. While the messenger was still talking, another came and said that God's fire had fallen from heaven and killed the sheep and the servants. And while he was still speaking, another came and said the camels had been taken by the Chaldeans and the servants killed. And while he was talking, another came and said that Job's sons and daughters were eating and drinking in the house of their oldest brother. And when a great wind came and smashed all 4 corners of the house, and it fell on everyone inside, and they all died. In response, Job tore off his cloak and cut off his hair. He fell to the ground and worshipped, and said, naked I came forth from my mother's womb, and naked shall I go back there. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. So in the end, Job didn't sin, nor did he curse God. The nakedness in the prayer represents anti-materialism. It represents the idea that eventually everything will be gone because we will die, and the things we have are gifts from God, so we should be grateful. Job stays faithful because eventually he will lose everything anyways. Then the Satan went back to God, and God said the same thing. The Satan said the same thing as well, but this time the Satan said that if God were to lay a hand on Job's bone and flesh, that he would curse him right to his face. This time God said Job is in the Satan's power, but he must spare his life. So the Satan went and inflicted severe boils on Job from head to toe. His wife said to him, are you still holding to your innocence? Curse God and die. But he said to her, you speak as foolish women do. We accept good things from God. Should we not accept evil? And yet again, Job did not sin. Then, when 3 of Job's friends heard of all of his misfortune, they went to visit him. The 3 of them met and went on to Job, so they may give him sympathy. But when from a distance they did not recognize him, they tore their cloaks and threw dust in the air above their heads. They sat on the ground with him for 7 days and 7 nights, but they didn't say a word to him, for they saw how great his suffering was, and they didn't help him because they believed he was being punished for sinning. Job stayed faithful, and right before he dies, God gave him back double what he originally had. The message of this story is that if you are faithful to God, you will be rewarded. This concludes the wisdom literature in the Bible.